Welcome to EoZTV. Sorry for the entrance.
It looks like it did a really good job here. I know what happened here.
I'm Elder.
I'm Mrs. Elder.
And today we're going to be talking about somebody who, whenever I tweet about her, I get lots and lots of attention. Linda Sarsour.
Ooh. I even know who she is.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, Lord.
Linda is, as most of you probably know, Linda is a Palestinian who is she calls herself a community organizer or something like that in Brooklyn. She said a lot of controversial things. She's very well politically connected, and it is. And what happens is, people, as I said, whenever I tweet about her, people have a visceral reaction. They say, "Oh, we can't stand her," or whatever. But she's a very smart person, and people don't usually know exactly what she's saying that's wrong. It's not always so easy to completely demolish her arguments because she's pretty slick.
Linda Slick?
Yeah.
Did you just say Linda sort of slick?
Yes, she is.
I'm not even going to have any words for that one.
Okay, so now the thing is that what I'm doing over here is I found she did a video last week with, honestly, I don't remember the name of the person, some left-wing webcast. And in the middle of the webcast, she was asked the question, hey, you do all this great stuff domestically, you're a community organizer, everything like that. How can you do that and also care so much about Palestine and all this stuff at the same time? And this is her answer that she gives to this.
Humor me.
Yes. So
do humor me.
Yeah. And afterwards on the show, either the show was either this was scripted or they edited the show afterwards. I don't know, because they obviously put a lot of pictures to be appropriate while she was talking. But let's listen to her answer.
Ooh, let's do.
Reasons why I've been a target of the right wing, and particularly right wing Zionists, because I do carry Palestine with me everywhere I go. It's who I am, and I do it for my grandmothers and my great grandmothers in Palestine, who, as you know, I am a manifestation of their story. And my grandmothers were born before the creation of the state of Israel. There was a story before the state of Israel, and I'm able to tell that story because I am a descendant of people who lived and coexisted with Christians and Jews before there was ever a state.
Okay, there's a bit of stuff to unpack over here.
You think?
Yeah. She is first saying that she's trying to position. This is what's called framing. A lot of people who are doing propaganda are very good at framing, because when you frame the discussion, it makes it very difficult for people to argue against. Linda is framing the discussion saying, I'm the descendant of people that were there before Israel, making it sound like she was there before the Jews were.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Jews were there thousands of years before that. But any time a Palestinian, this is consistent, any time a Palestinian talks about history, they talk about the history of right before Zionism began. So they claim that they were there for before that.
They're good at it, though.
Oh, they're excellent at it. But this is why framing is it's important to understand the propaganda value of framing things. Whenever you do get into a discussion with anybody who's Palestinian, pro-Palestinian, or something like that, if they start history in 1880 or in 1897 or in 1917, you know that they're doing this framing trick. The actuality is you have to start every discussion is that Israel is, or Judea, or however you want to pronounce it, is the place that was the Jewish homeland before Palestinians ever were heard of on the earth, before Muslims were ever heard of on the earth, before Christians were heard of on the earth. This was like, this was the Jews were there first. The Jews had a nation there first. There was no pre-existing nation. Sometimes the Palestinians will say, well, we're descendants of Canaanites or Jebusites or something like that, because they understand this argument.
They're still secondary.
Right, yeah. But so they say they're still second. But of course, there's no scientific evidence whatsoever that they're from the Canaanites, nor, and the Jebusites is very funny because the only reason they know the Jebusites existed is from the Bible. There's not much independent archaeological evidence of them, but they're saying, oh, no, Jerusalem, we're Jebusites, absolutely. The second thing that she's saying over here is that the Muslims lived and coexisted with Christians and Jews before there was a state of Israel.
I'm not going to even respond.
And this is, this is a myth, and it's something that they say over and over and over again. The fact is, under Muslim law and under Muslim rule from the time of Muhammad and their own end, Jews never were equal to Muslims. under Muslim law, the Jews are dhimmis, just like Christians are dhimmis, meaning they're not as bad as polytheists, they're not as bad as Hindus, but they are definitely second-class citizens. And they have been throughout sometimes better, sometimes worse. Okay, I'm not saying that Jews in Europe and in the Arab world were treated worse usually than the Jews in Europe or the Jews that were in Russia. However, like over here is just one example I just found before this, in which this person looked at the ledgers of the Jewish community in Jerusalem in the late 18th century. And he's saying, look at all they had to pay the jizya tax, which is something that dhimmis have to pay to Muslims. They had to pay unofficial taxes, fees, exactions, mandatory bribes. They were extorted in order to be able to even visit the Kotel, the Western Wall. The Jews had to pay money in order for them to have their people buried in the Mount of Olives in Har HaZeitim. They had to pay money. There was, and in fact, the paying the money for Har HaZeitim was protection money in order to stop the Arabs of Silwan from destroying it. It was essentially protection money to stop them from doing, to do horrible things to the grave sites. So don't tell us that they lived in wonderful equality. And this is not only Palestine, obviously, there's the entire Arab world. There is plenty of stuff that's out there that talks about this. But again, it's her framing. The framing is completely wrong.
You think?
Yeah. Let's go to the next.
Ooh, let's do.
And so I tell that story, and I'm able to challenge Zionism. I'm able to challenge the long-standing foreign policy of the United States of.
Okay. So Linda's now saying, because she has this unique ability of being a descendant of Palestinians, and she calls herself a Palestinian, she can challenge Zionism. And again, in her audience, Zionism is a dirty word. So she's able to challenge Zionism. But again, what does Zionism mean? The basic definition, this is just one I just grabbed quickly. Zionism's political and national activity that involves, that the mission of the movement is to reestablish a Jewish homeland in the land of Israel and supporting a Jewish homeland in the land of Israel. It is a nationalist movement. It is an anti-colonialist movement. It is a indigenous people's rights movement. And that's what Zionism is. And you're never going to hear Linda talk about that, because when you hear Arabs talking about it, they lie and they say it's a colonialist movement, and it is it was a Western movement, and it's the fact is Jews have since they lost the temple and they lost their own sovereignty over the land, they have prayed every day to be able to return to Israel, to Zion, to Jerusalem. And this is something that Linda's never going to admit, but she knows it's true, and the Palestinians know it's true, and the Muslims know it's true. She's the biggest farce
I think I've ever met.
She's
bad.
She's very bad, but as I said, she's slick, and it's important to be able to take it one by one, take everything she's doing, and point out exactly where the lies are, because for the people that don't live this all day like I do, they hear it and they're vaguely uncomfortable, but they don't necessarily see, oh man, this is something really bad.
Well, good. Educate everybody.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. Let's go to the next section.
Of America. When I fight for Medicare for all, Laura, what I tell people is, here you are fighting for healthcare. Just this idea that healthcare is a human right, and you're fighting for that in America, in the land of abundance. But we have trillions of dollars that we send the state of Israel in military aid that is used to occupy the Palestinian people.
Okay, there's a lot about this.
I'm like, oh.
I know. So, trillions of dollars. Okay, trillions. I should have put up a picture of Dr. Evil for this one. She's claiming, yeah, right. It's okay. She's claiming that the United States sends trillions of dollars to Israel. And again, part of the narrative that you're going to be hearing over here is she thinks there's a connection. She's trying very hard to show there's a connection between the United States support of Israel and terrible things happening in the United States. So it's completely absurd. But let's take a few of the things that she's saying right now.
It's called a terrorist in suit.
Yeah, terrorists in suits are what the Israel Ministry of which ministry is it? I can't even remember.
Of affairs.
They
put out a phenomenal booklet about
it. They did.
it.
There is. I mean, they describe how a lot of the people that are
terrorists.
A lot of the people that are supposedly part of NGOs are really terrorists. I mean, I don't know if Linda has any direct connections to terrorism, but
are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Listen, I stick with facts. Okay. It's possible, but I stick with facts.
The way she speaks, as slick as she is, the lies that she spews, give me a break.
Okay, let's look at these. First, let's look at the federal budget. Okay, this is the very simple thing. The federal budget is, and this is 2019.
Are we talking about the federal budget of the United States of America?
Yes, the federal budget. Yes.
I just wanted to make sure, because I wasn't sure if you were talking the federal budget over here or over there.
$4.4 trillion. Okay.
And we're sending trillions and trillions.
Right, yeah, it all seems to go to Israel, according to Linda Sarsour. However, it is it's the amount that they pay is about, at the moment, like $3.8 billion a year. That's probably about the size of this white line over here in the budget. Okay, it's line noise compared to the entire U.S. budget. Here's the defense budget. Okay, $676 billion for the defense budget, and all the money that's invested in Israel, even though it's under the foreign aid budget for whatever historic reason that is, it effectively is for defense of the United States. But first of all, it's a really tiny percentage. You could find lots and lots of federal programs that cost more and that are worth less than the amount of money that are invested in Israel. Also, practically all of the money that goes to Israel are for what they say over here, offshore procurement, which is money that has to be spent in America for defense systems. Now, this thing I'm bringing up over here, this foreign aid to Israel document from the Congressional Research Service, what it shows is where the money goes. Out of the money that goes to Israel, where it all goes. And if you look at the document,
it has resettlement on there.
Yeah, it does have a very little bit, only $5 million for refugee resettlement. This is like for when Jews were coming from Russia and things like that, or from Ethiopia. Mm-hmm. This is money that's it's grandfathered
only
in.
$2 million in security.
Homeland Security grant for Israel, yes, and that was for things like setting up the telephones to be able to warn for rocket attacks and things like that. But that's a tiny percentage of the 3.3 billion, and it's the 3.3 billion. That's 3.3 billion plus. There's also $500,000 that goes towards missile defense. So over here, which is again money that America is going to get back in spades, because this is the Israel's expertise in missile defense goes back to America. Every once in a while there'll be some people that go to ask the Department of State, hey, we want to make sure that all the money that's going to Israel is really not going towards oppressing Palestinians. Here's a letter from 2016 about that, and the State Department answered, we looked at all the allegations that you said, and first of all, we don't even agree that Israel's doing the horrible things that you're saying. Secondly,
I'm shocked that they actually wrote that. That's pretty good.
And secondly, and this is under the Obama administration. And second,
really?
Yeah, it is.
I'm shocked.
And secondly, it says, we have the Leahy law, which says that the money can't go anywhere that's not supposed to go, and we have a system in place, and we have audits, and we have all of this sort of stuff, and we checked out your specific events, and none of it's true. The last one that they found that could have been a violation was in 2006 during the Hezbollah war, that they thought maybe some U.S. weapons were used in ways they shouldn't be. But none of the money is even used, and maybe you could argue about this, but none of the money is even used across the green line, because that was one of the questions they were asking about them. Are they used for that? No, none of it is. The money is audited, and this is something that J Street does also. They say, well, we have to look at where the money's going. We have to raise the question. No, there's no question. It already is audited. The reason that they're raising the question is in order to smear Israel, to make it pretend that Israel is spending American money on terrible things.
Don't take this wrong. Anytime somebody does that,
mm-hmm.
they're deflecting what they're doing.
Of course, yes. Projection is a very, very big part of this whole
Absolutely.
thing. And moreover, again, we're talking about the money that America is giving Israel in aid. Let's look at the F-35 plane. F-35 plane.
I'd want to ride in that baby.
Yeah. The F-35 development, they say by the time it's finished, it's going to cost the U.S. $1 trillion to develop this plane. Okay? $1 trillion. Again, compared to what the 3.3 billion that Israel gets.
I got
Now, what does Israel do with their F-35s? Israel has bought 50 so far. I think there's another 50 on order. But Israel modifies it, and this is all with permission from the U.S. and from Lockheed. Israel keeps on adding extraordinarily high-tech things, and the F-35 has had problems. They had problems with the various systems inside, with software. People were having problems with it. Israel's improving the F-35 tremendously. This trillion-dollar project, Israel, with its $3 billion a year, and only a tiny part of the $3 billion a year is going to the F-35 development, Israel is making it far better and far more useful for the United States, not only for the United States, but for the United States to sell it to all these other countries that are buying the F-35. So so just by itself, it shows you that the $3 billion that America gives to Israel is an investment, and a tremendous investment compared to all of the other money that's being spent on defense in America. So that is that's just the beginning of it. But she just throws off this stuff saying, look, as this is a fact. Oh, America's giving trillions of dollars to Israel.
She's a phenomenal liar.
I know. America's giving trillions of dollars to Israel in order to occupy another people. Not a dime goes towards what she would call occupation. And she knows this. And so do the right. This is all completely a lie.
It's propaganda heaven.
Let's go on.
Who are me. And so our allies in the movement, they look at me and they say, well, that's not okay.
Okay, notice that Linda says the Palestinian people are me. Okay? Here she's completely identifying with the Palestinians. What happens when Jews say, I'm pro-Israel? This is like, they're called, that they say, oh, it's dual loyalty. Oh, you're more loyal to Israel. You're more loyal to Israel than to America is. And this is, this is an accusation that's come from the right, from the left. But Jews are patriotic. They're as patriotic as anybody is in America. And and a Jew in America is not going to say, "Oh, I choose Israel over the United States. I feel more towards Israel than I do towards the U.S." It doesn't matter. They never would do that. Here, Linda Sarsour, and the Palestinians make this accusation all the time that the Jews are the ones that are that really don't care. That don't care. But she's saying, hey, Palestinians are me. I'm a Palestinian. She herself is associating herself with these people, and nobody calls it out on her. Again, it's the double standard with Jews. But here she's saying it explicitly. I'm a Palestinian. She's not saying she's a Muslim. She's obviously she is, but she's saying I'm a Palestinian. I consider myself one of these people. And again, what are one of these people? These are people that are anti-gay, that are anti-feminist. This is anti-woman, misogynist. It's like, this is nuts. But when it's said for Jews, but she can say it, and it's no big deal.
We've got to find a solution for this because it makes me crazy.
Let's go on.
That's not right. When I work on issues of policing, we know that the U.S. police forces across the country go to Israel to be trained. They are getting their training from the from Israeli state police, and so I get to make the connections between stop and frisk and the type of stop and frisk and policies that we see that are implemented against the people of Palestine.
Okay, this is the deadly exchange libel. And the first time I saw this was like in 2015. Actually, I have it over here. In 2015 was the first time I saw the accusation that people were saying there were riots in Baltimore. That there was the police shot a black person in Baltimore, and it caused riots. And of course, when anything controversial happens, the people who hate Israel will immediately jump in and say, well, this is somehow Israel's fault. So what they said then
sounds like Trump's fault.
Yeah, right. So what they said then and what they're saying now is that since police in America sometimes go to Israel to be trained, and what are they being trained on? I mentioned it all in this article. They're being trained on crowd control techniques. They're being trained on anti-terrorism techniques. They're not being trained on how to actually do every day-to-day civil policing, because that's what the police do. They don't need to go to Israel for that sort of thing. They do intelligence gathering, preventing bombings, terrorist type stuff. That's the sort of stuff they're teaching the police, because unfortunately in America the police have to know this sort of stuff. But what's the libel? The libel is, and this is insane, the libel is that since some police in America go to Israel for training, therefore anything that the police do in America that's bad is Israel's fault.
I'm shaking my head. I know nobody can see this. Right. This is killing me.
So So essentially, and again, this is just it's such a bizarre accusation that the police, and it's derogatory to the police in America, because they're saying the police in America can't, resist the charm of or the orders of Israel. They're taking orders from the Jews as far as, hey, go after the black people, because that's what she's saying. She's saying that, oh, they learned how to attack black people from Israel attacking Palestine. It's insane. The police in America have their own ways of doing things. They have their own rules. Israel isn't overriding their rules. Israel isn't overriding their processes. And it's a completely insane accusation, and it's fundamentally an anti-Semitic accusation, because they're saying that, the Jews, are somehow magical Jews, are the ones that are teaching people what to, telling the police what to do, and then saying that the police in America are helpless in order to come up with their own, their own responsibility, which is essentially the way that they talk about Palestinians themselves. Palestinians are never the ones that are responsible for their own actions. It's always Israel, which is a weird sort of anti-Semitism, saying, they're the ones responsible for everybody in the world. But, they're saying, this is what they're saying. It's a completely insane argument.
You got to admit they got great marketing. We've got to reverse engineer what they're doing and go after them.
They have a lot of idiots that listen to them, and they also repeat the lies over and over and over again.
That sounds like what's going on over here.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Amazing.
Let's go to the next slide.
When I would talk about the prison industrial complex, and you think about corporations like G4S, which not only imprisons black and brown people and profits off of them in America, they also imprison people in Palestine and are profiting there. So
Okay, so there's a company that's a gigantic security company called G4S. This is not, nobody's doubting this. It operates all over the world, okay? It operates in Canada, it operates in South America, it operates in Arab countries, you see. It's in Egypt, it's in Saudi Arabia, it's in China, it's in India, it's in Australia, okay? But Linda doesn't talk about the other countries, saying, hey, there's some sort of a connection between G4S doing stuff in Israel and doing stuff in America. And she's trying to make this connection between the two of them. And there's no connection. G4S, it's a contracting security company. Whether they do good things, bad things, I've never investigated them. But they're only going to do whatever they're contractors. They're going to do whatever their countries that hire them, or the people that hire them, tell them to do. Again, this is a personal responsibility, something that's foreign to people like Linda Sarsour. People have to take personal responsibility. Is she saying that, horrible things are happening from G4S in Australia or in Canada? No, because she doesn't want to tell you to see the big picture. She wants you to say, it's in Israel and it's in the U.S. So therefore, they're going after the brown people in the U.S., they're going after the brown people in Palestine. And she's trying very hard, and this is something that anti-Israel people do all the time, they're trying very hard to make a connection between whatever the most trendy leftist talking point is in America, and saying, hey, it's ultimately Israel too. And this is what she says going on right now, actually, if you keep going. And she explains why she has the unique ability to do that.
I am able to show up in the movement as an intersectional leader that basically teaches people that our liberation as Americans and our domestic policies intertwine with people all over the world, including in Palestine. And that
she's intersectional. Because she's intersectional, she has the unique ability to see that there's connections between what Israel does in the territories and what the U.S. is doing. And this is her answer to the question of how can you deal with domestic issues and normal community stuff as well as the stuff that's going on in Israel. She has a unique ability, because she sees the big picture. She sees, she knows foreign policy. She sees what Israel's doing. She sees what people she hates in America are doing, and she can find the connection. But she's lying, because the big picture, the big picture is not Israel. She's focusing on the small picture, on a very tiny picture. She's focusing on the tiny amount that America is spending on Israel. She's focusing on the tiny amount of stuff, like police going to Israel.
They've got nothing else to hang their hat
Exactly.
on.
All they have are lies. She's not going to talk about where else G4S works. She's not going to talk about the fact that the police can go anywhere else. In fact, Do you know who else went to for training in Israel? For
Humor me.
Yeah.
Humor me.
The UN police force also went for training in
No.
Israel. Yeah. So the UN police force
They
also
allowed
must
the
have
UN to
learned.
go into Israel?
Right.
Oh,
Yeah. They did. So
I'm not kidding.
I know, but I'm just saying, it's ridiculous type stuff to say that everything that anybody that gets trained in Israel but for anything is is the responsibility of Israel. It's completely.
They just want to extort money.
Yeah. It's a
Money,
it's completely
land,
insane thing.
human rights.
And this is pretty much what the 2 minutes were of Sarsour, what she's saying. But again, in these 2 minutes, she pretty much handled all her talking points. Let's go over them quickly. She said, "Oh, Palestinians were there first, because my grandparents were there first before Zionists were there. Therefore, we pre-exist. Jews and Christians live together in peace." Okay, 2 lies. The U.S. is giving trillions of dollars to Israel. 3 lies. The money that the U.S. is giving to Israel is going towards occupation. 4 lies. The money that the U.S. is giving to Israel, she's implying, is completely wasted money, and it doesn't help anybody in the United States, where the stuff should be used for domestic reasons. That's the next lie, because the money that the United States spends in Israel saves far more money from the defense budget than if the U.S. would do the stuff by itself on things like missile defense, things like the F-35, like we're saying.
She's just upset she doesn't get the money, so she
Right,
can hurt more people.
Right. So that was the next lie. Then she goes on saying that the police that are in Israel are the ones that teach the police in the U.S. First of all, it's a libel against the police in the U.S., by the way, saying that they regularly attack black people. It does happen, and it's something that has to be dealt with, and it is dealt with. But there is racism in America, of course. There's racism in Israel too. But to say that Israel's responsible for America's racism is completely insane. But what is a person who hates Israel is going to say that? An anti-Semite is going to say that the Jews are responsible for this. Then she says, "Oh, G4S is a somehow." She didn't even try to make the connection there. She goes, "Well, G4S works in Israel and G4S does stuff in the U.S. and therefore it's evil."
Well, they've gotten away with this crap for so many years that she's using the same old script. Give me a break.
Right. And then finally she says, "Oh, she has a unique ability of being able to tie this stuff together. It has nothing to do with each other."
Is it that pink thingy around her head?
You're right, yeah. She wears very colorful hijabs, actually. But but she has the unique ability, because that's why people should listen to her, because she's uniquely both a Palestinian and American. She can see both. She sees the big picture, but she's lying about that, because she is not giving you the big picture.
Do you even think she's religious?
That's a whole other question, but we could talk about that's not for now. But
sorry,
but she's but she is she's not giving you the big picture. She is deliberately framing the entire argument to do the worst, to essentially libel Israel, to lie about Israel. This is how she works. So that's what my intent for this little talk was, to show it second by second how Linda Sarsour, as well as plenty of other people, this is what Ilan Omar does, this is what Rashida Tlaib does, this is what Electronic Intifada does.
They don't have any brains, do they?
No, they're not stupid. That's the problem. Yeah, they're not stupid.
They don't have any logical brains.
No, but they have logical brains, but their intent is not truth. Their intent is to gaslight everybody, to fool everybody, to teach everybody things that are complete propaganda lies. They'll try to minimize the lies themselves. When she said trillions of dollars, she wasn't thinking. That wasn't part of what. It was absurd, but it wasn't she was thinking. But they'll try to fit the things into the truth. But this is the methods they're using: the framing and so everything.
And
a lot of the stuff was gaslighting, but a lot of the stuff here was framing, in which she's saying, well, let's talk about Israel in Palestine and America, and not talking about what happens in the rest of the world, which has far more bearing on it. Let's talk about the budget, trillions of dollars, whatever, and not talk about what else is in the budget. This is exactly the framing. This is exactly the methodology that the anti-Israel propagandists use. So this was the point. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood this, that this is the sort of thing that she does. I'm not going to spend too much. I mean, there's some comments over here.
No, I'm not spending too much time. I'm only spending the whole time.
Right, I know. I'm just looking at the comments over here to see if there's anything. And it's okay, but this is pretty much it. But that's pretty much all I had to say at this point, and I already pretty much took up a half hour anyway. So for now, I'm Elder.
I'm Mrs. Elder, but hang on a second. I know you want to close down.
Yeah.
Don't forget, if you like this and you want to make this happen, go to the page, donate. We always can use your help.
That's a good point.
We need to do more shows like this, and we need to do it more frequently. We'd like to do 6x24. And on that note, it's...
And actually, tomorrow is Giving Tuesday. So
tomorrow's Giving Tuesday.
So tomorrow would be a good day, actually, if you want to donate to Elder of Zion. I would appreciate it. I know times are hard right now, but I am trying to do more now than before, especially with these videos, to try to help Israel out. So if you can give money, through the PayPal or through the Patreon and the other stuff that's on the right-hand side of the homepage for Elder of Zion, I would appreciate it. But for now, I'm Elder.
Mrs. Elder.
And thank you very much for joining in.